Bitcoin just hit a new all-time high, and it looks like we're going to continue heading higher. In this video, we're going to break down why Bitcoin is breaking out. Before we do get into it, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube. Really appreciate your support. I'm also going to put a QR code down below for a Bitcoin tip. So if you want to support the channel, feel free to leave me a little tip. Now let's get into it. Let's start off by talking about the macro environment. I believe that Bitcoin, as well as other assets, are being set up pretty nicely here. We just got a cut to the federal funds rate in September for 25 basis points, and it's looking like we're going to get another cut to the federal funds rate in October for 25 basis points. I checked on Polymarket, and it looks like the probability of this happening is at 90%, which means it's probably going to happen. It's also looking likely that we're going to get another cut to the federal funds rate to end this year. So that's pretty bullish for Bitcoin, as well as assets like stocks, real estate, gold, really any assets that aren't dollar assets, right? If we're seeing the federal funds rate go down, it means that it's going to become cheaper for the banks to borrow from one another, which is going to lead to the money supply rising, right? It's going to lead to more liquidity out there. That's going to push up the Bitcoin price. Another thing that's going to happen next year is we're going to see a new Fed chair. In the middle of 2026, we are going to see Jerome Powell leave, who has been a bit more hawkish, and we're going to see Donald Trump, the president, appoint a new Fed chair. Probably a Fed chair that's going to be more pro loose monetary policy. So that's going to be good for Bitcoin as well. Now, I'm not sure how loose the Fed is going to be able to get with their monetary policy, because if they lower rates a ton, right, if they're doing a bunch of QE, this is going to lead to inflation taking back off. But we know that with a new person in there appointed by Trump, we know that Trump wants to see the markets go higher. That's probably going to be bullish. So I've heard a lot of people talking about how we're going to see a bear market in 2026 for Bitcoin. But when I'm looking at the macro environment, right, I'm looking at this new Fed chair coming in and probably having a looser monetary policy. And I think that's going to propel Bitcoin, as well as most other assets, higher. So that's very bullish to me. Another thing we've been seeing this year is that the US Treasury has been buying back a good amount of their debt. They've bought around $138 billion worth of their bonds back. And this is telling me that the US government realizes that they need to inject more liquidity into this credit-based system. Let's go ahead and take a look at a little visual here, which compares the US Treasury buybacks in 2024 to 2025. And as you can see, in 2025, we've already seen the US Treasury buy back a lot more of their debt. So this is not quantitative easing. It's not the Fed creating new money and buying the debt, but it is the US Treasury using their existing money to buy the debt, and they're pushing that money out there, right? That's going to lead to more liquidity. That's going to lead to asset prices going higher. It's going to lead to Bitcoin going higher. And I do think that it is a precursor to quantitative easing. I think that eventually we are going to see the Federal Reserve come in and buy up some of these long-term US Treasury bonds. And why are they going to do that? Because nobody wants these, right? We are actively seeing countries, really all entities, ditching US Treasury bonds because nobody wants to bet on the dollar over 20 to 30 years. So when we do see the Fed come in and buy up these long-term Treasury bonds, they're going to print more money to do that, and that is going to push asset prices up a lot. That's going to be very bullish for Bitcoin. So the macro environment is looking pretty bullish to me. And if we look on the other side of the equation, we're just seeing a ton of Bitcoin demand. We have seen continuous demand in a lot of places. One area where we're seeing it is with these Bitcoin treasury companies. We are seeing more companies come in every day and say, hey, we are starting to stack Bitcoin. We've seen these Bitcoin treasury companies like Strategy or Metaplanet continue to stack heavily. And the more of these businesses, the more of these companies that come into Bitcoin and start stacking, I mean, that is a ton of demand, a ton of money flowing into this asset, and that is going to keep pushing us higher. Another thing we've seen are these Bitcoin ETF inflows. And really over the past week here, we've seen spot Bitcoin ETF inflows taking off, and I think that's a big reason why we just broke a new all-time high above $125,000. So we can go ahead and take a look at that. As you can see towards the end of this chart, we are seeing green, right? We are seeing money flowing into these ETFs. And really, these ETFs have just been a great vehicle for people in the traditional finance world to get allocated to Bitcoin. And we're also going to see the banks start to offer Bitcoin services soon here, right? They're going to offer Bitcoin custody, which I wouldn't recommend, but a lot of people might feel more comfortable for some reason doing it through their bank. They're also going to be offering Bitcoin products. This is just going to lead to Bitcoin becoming more integrated into this traditional financial system. And eventually it's going to really just take over this traditional financial system. I don't even know if we'll really need these traditional banks in 10, 15 years here, but we will just have to see. Another thing that's going to be pushing up the Bitcoin price is nation state demand. We saw El Salvador come into this space a couple of years ago and become the first country to really start stacking Bitcoin. We saw that the USA established a strategic Bitcoin reserve earlier this year, and we're seeing a lot of other countries do this as well. We've seen Kazakhstan come in, Pakistan, Bhutan, the UAE, and I think that more and more countries are going to quietly come into this space more. I bet there's a ton of countries out there that are stacking Bitcoin or mining Bitcoin and just not announcing it. So if we do see these large entities, right, these very powerful entities that countries are coming in and stacking Bitcoin, I mean, that could really push up the Bitcoin price. If we were to see the US decide to buy more Bitcoin, or China or Russia, it could really start an arms race with Bitcoin and lead to other countries buying, and that's when we could really see Bitcoin move a lot faster than people expect. There's not a lot of Bitcoin left out there, only around 2 million left on exchanges. So things can move very fast if big governments come in and say, hey, we want to take control of this asset. The last thing I want to mention is that we have continued to see the Bitcoin hash rate shoot up higher, which is a great sign. The Bitcoin hash rate is basically the computing power behind the Bitcoin network. And the more computing power we see behind this network, that is signaling to us that the Bitcoin network is healthy. Let's go ahead and take a look at a little chart of the Bitcoin hash rate here. And as you can see, since around 2020, really, between 2021 and 2022, we've seen the Bitcoin hash rate taking off. Now, this might have something to do with nation states possibly mining Bitcoin and really adding to the Bitcoin hash rate, but it's up over 10x over the past 5 years, and we have now gone above 1 Zeta hash. So Bitcoin is looking very healthy. We are seeing a lot of demand, and we are seeing the fiat money supply continue to grow. And it looks like we're heading into this era of monetary expansion. We know that the debt's only going to get worse. We know that US Treasury bond demand is only going to get worse, right? Who's going to want to hold these assets when Bitcoin and gold are skying up like this? So I see a ton of Bitcoin demand. I see a good macro environment where the dollar supply is rising. And I think that is a great reason to get out of dollars and into Bitcoin. So today is a great day to do that. That is going to wrap it up for this one. If you didn't like and subscribe, please make sure to do that now. And let's see where Bitcoin goes next, baby. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon.